First of all, thank you, Dean James, for such a kind introduction. It is the honor of a lifetime to be able to speak in front of such a talented group of students. So I'd like to thank all of you and your families for having me. Thank you to the faculty and the administration of the Wharton School and the university more broadly. And thank you to Dean James for your leadership of this great institution. So what I thought I'd do today is walk you through the lessons learned from the mistakes I've made since walking onto this campus 29 years ago. I've summarized them here on a short list, and for the next 10 or 11 hours, I plan to go through my mistakes in a lot of detail. All kidding aside, when I started preparing for this, I read online that the best commencement speakers incorporate comedy into their speeches to break the ice. Since that's not necessarily my strong suit, I reached out to two of my friends in the entertainment business, Rob McElhenney and Jason Bateman, for joke ideas. And they both immediately texted back, all caps, Vivek, do not try to be funny. Repeat, do not try to be funny. Now, I thought that was a little harsh, but since commencement speeches are about advice, I'm going to take that advice, leave the comedy to the comedians, and use the next 10 minutes of my speech to synthesize the highlights of my journey and what I wish someone would have told me 25 years ago when I was sitting where you are now. I'm going to start with the topic of gratitude. I know we're all grateful to be here. This is a moment we will never forget. And as such, it is a great moment to acknowledge those who helped get us here. Many of you are here with family. I want to thank my family, my amazing wife Sarika, and our 3 kids, Devin, Avni, and Dia. My dad unfortunately passed away about 7 years ago, but he's definitely with us here in spirit. But my mom is here. Hi, Mom. And I just want to say thank you and I love you to all my family, and I'd like to ask all of you to give a brief round of applause for your family. So I'm going to dive into my background. My mom and dad were born in very small towns in South India, though they both made it to Mumbai before moving to the United States. I'm sure you've heard that old adage that some parents exaggerate how they walked 5 miles uphill to school both ways every day and did their homework without electricity and running water. Well, my dad didn't like to talk about the things that he overcame, but having been to the house that he grew up in, if he would have told that story, it actually wouldn't have been much of an exaggeration. And so it was his passion for education that brought him to this country. In 1965, he won the prestigious Tata Scholarship to do his second master's degree in the US. And so he boarded a boat and left his family with $60 in his pocket, and he managed to build and provide a comfortable life for my family, but he never forgot where he came from and how important education, values, and hard work were to dramatically improving his quality of life. And so despite starting with $60, he had a sense of duty to pay for whatever school I wanted to go to. And so for my mom and dad, if that meant sacrificing their own quality of life during that saving process, well, duty is duty. And so 1995 came along, and I really wanted to go study business at Wharton. And notwithstanding the cost, my mom and dad were thrilled, and I moved into the baby quad in August of 1995. I remember walking around the quad during orientation, and I was very impressed by my classmates. Perhaps too impressed, as I started to second-guess myself. Did I really belong? Many of the kids went to fancy private schools and boarding schools. Others went to great public schools. And it felt like almost everyone was well-spoken, well-traveled. They had great study habits. They had a sophisticated understanding of what classes to take, how to get internships. It really seemed like they were ready for the big leagues, and I belonged in Little League. That worry only grew over the course of my first semester. I had always been a straight-A student in my school district without needing good study habits. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't understand this concept of a forced grading curve. So I went home for the holidays with the lowest grades of my life, and I felt like a failure for the first time ever. Now, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of experience at failing at things. If I had more time and multimedia, I could show you a whole blooper reel of airballs, strikeouts, four putts, fumbles. But academics was the one thing I was supposed to be good at. And so how was I going to explain to my parents, who overcame real adversity, that I couldn't hang? And so I went home and I talked to my parents about the unthinkable. Would I need to transfer out of Penn? My more sophisticated friends had told me, unless I turned it around quickly, I'd be ineligible for IB interviews. That sounded really bad and might have added to my stress, but luckily I had no idea at the time what IB was. That conversation I had with my parents, which I thought was going to be the worst of my life, ended up being the most impactful, and it leads to my first piece of advice, which is to focus on actions and process and not outcomes. My parents' point was this: grades are an outcome, but what's my process? And what can I do to improve my process? What actions can I take to put myself in a better position? If I improve my process, it should lead to better grades, but I can't control the curve or the outcome of the grades. You can only control what you can control. So if you can't control something, you can't worry about it. But you can control your process. And so I focused on being more organized, taking better notes, developing study habits, being proactive instead of procrastinating, all the things that you've already figured out because you're here graduating. And so, of course, the point of this story isn't about grades, it's about resiliency. I think resiliency is the most important life skill one can have, because no matter how talented you are, or the more things you have going your way, the more success you have, the more competitive it will be. And there will be times you'll get knocked down. And so the question is not if you'll get knocked down, it's how often, how hard, and how quickly you'll get back up. In the 25 years since I've graduated, I've been very lucky that my work has given me the opportunity to be around some of the most successful people in business, including founders of companies and CEOs. And my passion for sports outside of work has given me an opportunity to be around some of the most successful people in sports. And while what it takes to be successful in sports and business are different in some ways, there are some things that are very similar, things like teamwork and hard work. But another big one is resiliency. Every successful entrepreneur I've met has failed, in some cases spectacularly, before they were successful. But you have to be willing to take risk, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that even the most calculated risk won't always work out. But what's your process? How robust is it? Are you really making tough sacrifices? My friend Deuce Staley is here, former NFL player turned coach, two-time Super Bowl champion. He flew in from Cleveland to be here. Thanks for coming, Deuce. Thank you. By the way, he should be a head coach in the National Football League, so hopefully we can work together to make that happen. But he likes to talk to his players about their goals. And he asks them, what's your mission? But that's the easy part. His follow-up question is, do your habits reflect your mission? So it's easy to want to be great, or want this job, or that promotion, or that award, but is your process the right process for getting there? In the National Football League, games are once a week and they last 60 minutes. But from Sunday night to Wednesday morning, the average coach spends 40 hours reviewing film, and then later in the week another 40 or 50 hours game planning and coaching for the next game, which again is only 60 minutes. Think about that ratio. They look at every play from their player and each player on their team and the other team from every camera angle. All of this is in the hopes of finding something subtle to improve that can make a difference in next week's game. In the business world, you see similar or greater levels of preparation to the actual event. For every couple-hour client meeting we have in my business, we spend hundreds of hours analyzing the topics for that meeting. The clients themselves have board meetings and earnings calls, and they have similar preparation to performance ratios. But preparation is only part of the process. The other important part is how honest are you about evaluating the output of your process and making it better the next time. Everyone makes mistakes. We spend a lot of time recruiting from the best and brightest from schools like Wharton, and the #1 area for development when you look at review feedback for first-year analysts and first-year associates is attention to detail. What differentiates people a few years into their career is how much they've learned from their mistakes. So the first step is learning from mistakes that are pointed out to you. The good news is that's easy. The next step is learning from mistakes that were not pointed out to you. Going back to football, if you're a defender and the receiver notices a subtle tell in your footwork that helps him run by you, but the opposing quarterback didn't see him open, and so he didn't get the ball, you got away with a mistake that no one noticed. But if you don't admit to yourself that you made that mistake, then guess what? It'll happen again, and you probably won't be as lucky the next time. And so do you have the discipline to learn from mistakes that no one else notices? And how are you at taking constructive criticism? Do you seek it, or do you push back when you get it? Do you have mentors that give you tough feedback, or mentors that make you feel good? By the way, I think you need both, but my experience is, even if you disagree with a piece of feedback, there's something to be learned from it, and there's value in trying to understand why the feedback provider has the perception they do and how you might fix the perception. The minute you think you don't need to work on something because you've perfected it is the minute that someone else will figure out a better way to do it, and then all of a sudden you're playing catch up. Now, notwithstanding all this talk about process, let's acknowledge the role of luck. I'm a big believer in meritocracy, and while hard work and talent are absolutely critical to succeeding, every successful person I've known has benefited from some degree of luck. And it's important not to become arrogant or lose sight of that. Now, of course, you can't control luck, but you can put yourself in the best position to benefit from luck. Great general managers of sports teams will tell you, you can't really plan to win a championship in any given season. What you can do is build a good team that can consistently get to the playoffs, and if you consistently get to the playoffs, you increase the odds you'll win a championship. But the point is, you can't control what happens once you're in the playoffs in any given season. There could be injuries, fluke plays, officiating mistakes, hot streaks, bad weather. Sometimes the field is slippery in Arizona. But winning the championship is an outcome, and at least some percentage of that outcome is about luck. And so if luck matters and you've succeeded, which definitionally involves at least some luck, the question then becomes, what are you doing about giving back? You as a group have already accomplished a lot just to get here, and you will no doubt accomplish a lot more in the future. But don't lose sight of how you were helped along the way and how you can help others. And don't underestimate the impact that you can have. Because if each of you has even just a small impact, when you multiply that by the number of people in this room, the cumulative impact gets very big very quickly. And so pick causes or charities that matter to you and figure out how you can help them and start that process today. And believe it or not, the pride you'll feel from building that bridge and seeing the impact of that help will feel even better than the feeling you'll have as you rack up your own championships. Thanks again for having me. Best of luck to all of you going forward, and we're going to close this speech the way that we break a huddle. So I'm going to count to 3, and everyone in here very loudly is going to yell hard work. Ready? Hard work on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hard work! Thank you.